7,000 people in Kingston cannot walk into a grocery store and buy a week's groceries. They depend on the Partners in Mission Food Bank. Today we'll find out more. So Sandy, tell us what goes on here at Partners in Mission Food Bank.
Well, we're a central collection and distribution facility for donated food, and we distribute that out to low-income families and individuals in the city. And it's a busy place. We've always got food coming in and going out.
Okay, and the food comes strictly from people donating, or does it come from other places too?
Pretty much. 90% of the food that we distribute does come from our own community, but we're also members of the Ontario Association of Food Banks and Food Banks Canada. And within that membership, there is a food distribution from larger donors, corporate donors, and that's sort of allocated across the country to different food banks based on the amount of service that you do, so the amount of people that are actually coming. So that is another source. We also have our own garden that we grow vegetables in, and that's a partnership with Frontenac Institution. And the inmates actually run the garden, and we've had as much as 60,000 pounds of food a growing season from that garden.
That's a
this
lot.
year was a little less because it was pretty much of a drought season, but so that's a great source of getting fresh foods in.
Now, if someone comes in and gets a food hamper, what would they find in it?
Well, it's based on the Canada Food Guide, so all of the food groups are represented, and you're going to get about a week's worth of food in the standard hamper. Everybody gets fresh fruits and vegetables in every hamper, and milk and eggs. So really, you know, creatively, you could stretch that beyond a week's worth of food.
Now, I don't remember food banks when I was growing up. How long have they been around?
Well, this food bank has been in place for 33 years, so that's about average for food banking across Canada. So mid-80s, say 84 was our starting year, and that was really sort of on the tail end of that first recession that happened, and when we were seeing a lot of displaced workers, and really there was a need in communities because the faith-based organizations that were running soup kitchens, what used to be called soup kitchens and that sort of thing, were completely overwhelmed. So really we needed to have a larger community-based involvement in providing food.
So it was considered a temporary measure at the time. So what's going wrong? Like, why are you still here?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, and I think really we have never seen anything normalized from that point, right? So we've gone into, we respond to two things. We respond to government policy and we respond to the economy. So as we were going through the 90s, certainly in Ontario here, we had a more punitive government in place that cut Ontario welfare rates. We've never recovered from that. That's never been, you know, brought back up even to the standards of that time, and then encountered two recessions since I've been here. So any time that happens, it creates a new normal for us. So our numbers go up, and then they stay there. They never drop back down again.
You mentioned that hampers reflect the Canada Food Guide, and I see everything is laid out in categories. So can you walk us through what your different categories are?
So the other room we were in there is the sort of the main catchment area, and here we get a little bit more refined in how it's laid out, and this is really for the benefit of the volunteers. So everything is laid out alphabetically as you go around the room, and then when our volunteers come in to fill a hamper, they grab a shopping cart and then just start putting all the pieces together, and depending on the size of the hamper. So we have three sizes that we operate with: a single, small, and a large, depending on the size of the family, and that determines how many items would go into the hamper.
And I know an area for baby stuff?
Right, so we have a little section over there that's for baby products, diapers and baby foods and baby wipes, all of those kinds of things, really expensive items. In fact, we've really seen a decline in the amount of baby food we're getting, so I'm always making sure we plug that, because for years and years we had, you know, we would even be a couple of years ahead because the jars are dated so far forward, so now we're kind of putting more of a peel out that we do need that kind of stock.
Now, what do you say to people who say, I don't know about food banks, I think they just cause people to become way too dependent? What do you say to people like that?
Well, you know, years ago, I've been at this for 23 years, and that years ago, that question came up a lot, and I think that question of the deserving poor sort of thing. But I think as the years have gone by and people appreciate what we're doing, probably know people who have used a food bank, who have been dangerously close to having to use one themselves. I think there's more of an appreciation of how vital this service is to the community. People have to eat. They cannot progress in life unless if they're hungry. And I think most people understand that. So I hear less and less of that kind of argument now, which is terrific. And I think as a result is really why we can still maintain the service, because of the support we get from the community. Kingston's a phenomenal community that way. We well support most charities, and we've always been able to maintain our service because of that.
Partners in Mission Food Bank accept donations all year round. So the next time you've got food in your pantry that no one's ever going to eat, give it to them. To find out more, visit their website. For K-Town Source, I'm Donna Chambers.